coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. A mixed week. Lots of goals, lots of action, lots of excitement, but unfortunately points dropped. Although we did manage to win a game 5-0, so we should delight in that. I'm glad to say we have a full house. I am Matt H. We also have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. I know most people only tune in for the weekly updates on my health, and I'm happy to inform that I'm back to full health, which may explain some of the weekend's action, I guess.
It may. We'll need more evidence, I think, before we blame you too much for that. But
yeah.
We'll certainly bear that in mind for the moment. And we also have Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt. I'm well, but obviously somewhat disappointed at Matt P's able to say the same.
I'm sorry.
Selfish return to health, or whatever we can describe it. Right, lot to get through, so let's crack on. 2 games to look back on, a couple of games to look forward to. Also, we're doing this at the time that the FA Cup third round draw is being made, so particularly as defending champs, of course, we will try and keep an eye out, and we'll get some live reaction to that. Fingers crossed then it's a team that we've at least heard of and know something about. If it was Exeter or Forest Green, we'd be in good shape, because Matt would know about that, but we shall wait and see. Right, Huddersfield. We played them last Tuesday. It was an odd game. We had a couple of sort of odd games this week, and this was the first. We were 1-0 up after a mere seconds, it seemed like, actually 4 minutes, and then sort of huffed and puffed and held on a bit, and then a sort of second half blitz of goals gave us what looked on paper a very comfortable win. The team is the obvious place to start. It was strong. It was I think, as we've discussed before, our strongest lineup. Where should we start with this? Pete, what did you think of that when you saw the team? Probably not a great surprise. I think we were perhaps expecting a little more rotation in midweek.
Yeah, we thought we didn't want there to be rotation, but we thought there probably would be, and I think we were all very pleased to see when there wasn't. Although when we come on to later events, maybe it's a shame there wasn't a rest for some of the defence.
Good point. Yeah, Matt, any thoughts on this lack of rotation? Ozil was back from his mysterious illness that he gets when he goes north of the Watford. Full strength team otherwise.
It was the first time, not the last, that Wenger would lie about the team. He said Ozil would be out. Well, he was not. It was strangely strong. I guess Wenger was hoping to keep up some momentum. I mean, we did that and wanted to go into the United games with as much confidence as possible. So yeah, it was a lot stronger than we were thinking.
So the first half then, we got off to a great early start, which has often been something that's worked against us, and indeed did later on in the week. Lacazette really starting to fit into the team, for want of a better word. Although, of course, he then came off at half-time with an injury that was supposed to keep him out at the weekend and didn't, so we'll come to that later. But good move, good finish for the first goal, Pete.
Yeah, and of course it was an Aaron Ramsey flick, who was great all night, actually, as well as Mesut Ozil. And I am now beginning to see what Lacazette does. I've said a number of times I'm still not entirely convinced, and over the last few games I think he's really stepped up, and now I can see what he's doing and can understand what he's bringing to the team, and I think the rest of the team are beginning to understand it too and be able to play much better with him than they could. And he was certainly a high point for the first 45 minutes.
He was, wasn't he? Yeah. Sorry, go on, Pete.
And then very sad to see him go off and think, oh no, we're going to lose for Saturday.
Well, yes. So which we will come on to later. I was trying to watch this on a dodgy stream, which proved to be far more dodgy than they normally are, and only really got sorted towards the end of the first half. So I was able to see some of Arsenal's really quite dodgy stuff for the last 10 minutes of the first half, where we looked. I don't know if it was worried or overconfidence or some weird in between thing, because it was 1-0 up. Huddersfield have proved they can, they're a half decent team the way they played against City just last weekend. Matt, were you worried as we entered half time?
Yeah, we weren't looking very solid at all. They caught us on the break a few times, got in behind. Was it the first half or the second half where Czech slam dunked the ball onto the bar?
At second, I think, if I remember right. Pete was there. He can confirm if we're right.
Second half, it was on the clock end bar. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That didn't fill me with confidence. But no, we weren't looking hugely solid. And I mean, we'll come on to second half, but up until that 5-minute spell, it was certainly pretty nervy at 1-0, I guess.
Yeah, you've alluded to the Czech incident, this rather strange save, but it's a save nonetheless. Well, we've got a lot to talk about this week, so let's zip through to the second half. Past the hour mark, we're still sort of holding on to a 1-0 lead, looking better in the second half, I think, but still holding on. And then, and this must have been fun in the stadium, Pete, I know you were there, 3 goals in 4 minutes.
4 minutes, yeah. It's nice when you finally know you can relax, and particularly on a freezing cold night like that, which it was. It was just a sparkling period, wasn't it? Absolutely sparkling. Ozil turned it on, and I mean it was quite weird as well after having seen Lacazette really running the show almost in the first half for us to have a performance like that without him in the second. It was really quite peculiar.
Yeah, and as you say, it's nice when the goals go in and you can relax a bit. Matt, any thoughts about any of the goals in particular, or is it just it's all a bit of a flurry, isn't it, when it happens like that?
I thought Ozil's goal was really nice. Deliberately bounced it into the ground, I think, to bounce it over the keeper. But as you said, he was involved in all of them, and he sort of turned it on for that 5-minute spell. Clearly high on Lem's hip over his illness. And Huddersfield couldn't really deal with it. And yeah, after that spell, the game was over.
It was. We did manage to get a fifth. The only comment I'd make about the fifth, it was Giroud, wasn't it, who got that last one just 3 minutes from the end. My only comment when I was watching was how brave he was to get in the way of Kolasinac, who had done this sort of hard work and appeared to be. I mean, I think it was the right thing for Giroud to finish it off, but I thought it was quite amusing given the size of Kolasinac and the bravery of Giroud to get in the way. But perhaps that was just me.
Just one other comment on that whole second half thing. I mean, it did make you think really that Huddersfield had just had enough. Well, probably by the time we got our second goal, really, I think they were tiring. They'd had a long, hard game against Man City. I think they were just shattered to some extent, and I'm not sure it was all about our brilliance. I think it was partly about Huddersfield. Having tried hard in this game as well, then worked really hard for the first 60 minutes, and just reaching the end basically. And they're obviously not as good away from home as at home, and it was just the moment where it all came together, and they couldn't go on any longer, and we took control.
We did, and it wraps up the win, and I think the fatigue was completely understandable given the previous week. I've just seen the draw that Liverpool and Everton have been drawn to play against each other. That's quite exciting. We'll keep an eye on that. Quick before we move on from Huddersfield, I wanted to have a quick.
Brighton.
Oh, hello, Pete's in. Oh, Brighton and Palace. This is a fix.
I don't know where this is going.
Liverpool, Everton, Brighton, Palace. That's quite ridiculous. Yes, you two can keep an eye. Let me know when Arsenal come up, and I can turn around and check. I was going to get your thoughts on November then, because although we lost to City at the start of November, we then beat Spurs. In terms of the league games, we beat Burnley, we beat Huddersfield, we lost to Cologne, but didn't matter as it turned out. Do we worry too much about the whole November thing? I tend to think we do. But do you think it matters at all that we had a nice little run? Pete, any thoughts on that?
It's great that we had a good run in November, but it looks like December is now going to take over from November. Let's face it.
Yes, this is true. True.
We seem to have addressed our November issues, and probably we're going to start a new month to hate. Which I think happened last season as well, didn't it? Am I wrong in thinking that we did read well in November last season?
My memory doesn't work like this, so I don't know. I mean, we were helped this year by having an international break in the middle of it, which did minimise the danger slightly. Matt, any thoughts on the November curse, or whatever we want to call it?
I think we were helped by some good fixtures, but there were, Burnley away was a tough game, and we played well there. So I think we just went on a pretty good run, and our defence found some form at the time, so we managed to banish the jinx of November. But yeah, as Pete said, December hasn't got off to a great start.
No, we were also, I suppose, but we were also able, I should say, to play our strongest team, generally speaking. Perhaps one or two people.
Away to Nottingham Forest.
Away to Forest in the third round. There we go. If I'm not mistaken, Forest are doing quite well at the moment. We'll leave that for the moment. We will come back to that in a second. For the moment, though, we can't put it off any longer. Let's get to the home game against United, which took place on Saturday evening.
We just cover the glove count in the Huddersfield game.
Oh, if you like, if you're doing your important work, please let us know.
We actually won it 4-2.
Yes.
Now, by won it, do you mean we had 4 players or 2 players?
We had 2.
We had 2. Wow.
Huddersfield 4.
Wow. The championship's got a bit fancy down,
Huddersfield.
I'm impressed. Anyway, thank you for that information. Do you have the same information as regards the Man United game?
I do.
Oh, go on. Give us that first then, so we've got that.
Well, up front, we lost 3-1.
Oh, in what? Hang on. Do you mean gloves or goals?
Gloves as well.
Oh, well, there we go. Maybe there's a correlation here.
Phil Martial deserves extra points for wearing short sleeves and gloves. That should be double points, I think.
Right, let's get to it. Saturday afternoon, home to Man United. We lost 3-1, and I think no one's entirely sure how this happened. We suffered... Well, the first thing, let's get back to the team news. So, having been told Lacazette would not be starting, he did. Mind you, Man United also had suggested apparently that Matic was going to be out, and he started. So both teams, I think I'm right in saying, were unchanged from their midweek games. Well, we've seen this before, though. Within 11 minutes, we were 2-0 down. Some defensive sloppiness, shall we say, to say the least. Where should we go? Matt, what were you thinking through those first 11 minutes?
I saw Wenger after the game say that we had a disappointing defensive start. I think that was one way of putting it. The first one was bad enough. It was a dangerous ball to play. I'm not quite sure why Kolasinac went tearing forward when he was never going to get there. And you just think after that that maybe be a bit more careful. If there was pressure on, maybe just clear your lines. But no, Mustafi followed suit, tried to do a turn, got caught. No, I don't know if he went off injured or through embarrassment, but it was such a poor start, and they were so avoidable. We literally gifted them 2 goals. I say for both of them, even after we gave the ball away, we probably still had a chance. If we hadn't, in both cases, our defence has sort of followed the ball and dived in, and we've made it so easy for them. And yeah, if there's anything you don't want to do against a Mourinho side, it's go behind like that easily. And the fashion which we did it was really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty dire watching those first 10 minutes. I mean, things did change. We'll come to that. But Pete, what's it like in a stadium? Well, no, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to get your opinion anyway. What's it like in the stadium? As you approach the 12th minute, 2 down at home to United.
Actually, it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. I mean, I think people were obviously pissed off, but it wasn't. People were getting behind the team still, and still thought we had a good chance. So it wasn't like people gave up on it. And to be honest, it did. I think it was partly because it was very strange, wasn't it, that a defence that hasn't given up a goal in however long suddenly made some horrendous individual errors. And they were mostly individual errors, weren't they? The Koscielny's square ball across the defence is pretty poor. And then everyone else gets involved. Kolasinac misses the ball. Everyone runs towards Pogba and leaves Valencia by himself. And so it's a complete mess all round. But it's not something we've seen a lot of recently, is it? So it was quite surprising. And then Mustafi's, what he was playing at, I've got absolutely no idea. He could have put that out for a corner, couldn't he, rather than do what he did?
But anything would have been better than what he did, yes.
Would have been better off. He could have put it absolutely anywhere. So, it seemed to me more than anything else just quite surreal that we should be down 2 goals after 11 minutes. And I think most people, although quite stunned, weren't totally they could still see a positive future.
Well, that's the thing. When you concede that early, you do at least give yourself a lot of chance to attempt to come back. And what we then saw in the rest of the first half was weird. I mean, is the only way I can think to describe it. Arsenal had chance after chance, still looked petrifyingly bad the moment United sort of crossed the halfway line on a break. But we had chance after chance after chance. The figures, I don't actually have them to hand, but something like 15 shots in the first half or something. It was some ridiculous number. But more than that, it wasn't just that United was sitting back and letting us do it. We looked the better team, despite being 2-0 down, certainly for that period. We don't want to go through every single miss. We don't want to go through every single chance that we had. I think we should just note that we all of a sudden started playing much better. I wondered if you had and I'm putting this in air quotes, a favourite miss or save from De Gea that you'd like to note. Matt, anything in particular that stood out in terms of either ineptness or unluckiness or something like that?
So many of them. You had to laugh or you'd probably start crying. I think the one that sticks out is probably the one where Lacazette's air kicked it the first time. It's bounced back to him. He then decided to try and dribble it round De Gea, which took a lot longer than he thought. The shot's been blocked. It bounces off the bar. Iwobi then air kicks it and it comes to Xhaka from about 6 yards out and he puts it just wide. It was just incredible, really. BT's commentary team just seemed to be laughing most of the time at our missing. And, I mean, we'll probably come to the second half, but there was another double save there. It was an incredible goalkeeping performance, but some pretty poor finishing as well. You'd say to have 33 shots and only score once. Yeah, it was great goalkeeping, but our finishing could have been a lot better, I think.
It could. I mean, I think the BT chaps, I think they were sort of almost as disbelieving as probably a lot of people in the stadium were. It was getting ridiculous, and I think you're right. It was that kind of reaction that this just can't carry on. Well, it did carry on, unfortunately, for the whole of that first half. Although the second half got a bit better. Oh, sorry, Pete. Before I go any further, did you have a favourite miss? I think mine was the one that actually was off Lukaku, and still De Gea managed to get in the right place to save it.
That was a great save. I can't say I enjoyed it.
No. Enjoyed might not be the right word, but yes, I know.
That was probably the best save of the first half. I think probably that one. And unless you count the sort of fairly fortunate one where Lacazette just booted it into his knee from 6 inches.
Yeah. Well, it was all very frustrating, shall we say?
Incredibly frustrating and just unbelievable, really. Half time, 2-0 down. We're all looking at each other thinking, how did that happen? Let alone the 2 that we'd gone behind. It was just unbelievable that we hadn't at least got one back.
And which is what's so frustrating about these early concessions for these individual mistakes, where if we'd started the game in the 12th minute, we'd have been by far the better team. But you can't really say you're the better team when you're 2-0 down. You might have all the chances, but as I think Matt's alluded to there, you've got to finish them off, and we just didn't get there. We did get there, however. We got our own early start, as it were, at the start of the second half. Excuse me. Now, simple question here. Did Ramsey mean to set up Lacazette, or was it a bad touch that he got lucky with? After watching it a few times, I tend to think he meant to do it. Let's go to Pete first. This would have been at your end, wouldn't it? So, any thoughts sort of as it was happening or subsequent?
It's Aaron Ramsey. What else am I going to say? It was completely deliberate. He knew exactly what he was doing. He thought the only way we're going to score here is if I just quickly knock this back to him, and then he'll make sure he puts in the goal this time. Yeah, it was a brilliant piece of Ramseyism, as ever.
Ramseyism, they could be a new thing. I'm not sure Sanchez would be signing up for that, but yes, Matt, what did you?
Ball into it was an Alexis ball into him, wasn't it?
Well, he probably didn't realise it was Ramsey, I imagine. That's the only possible explanation. Matt, it was. I mean, it was. I do. After many watches, I do tend to think it was on purpose. What do you think?
But
I can understand people might not as well.
I love Ramsey. He's probably my favourite player, but I don't know. He didn't seem to be aiming that way with his touch, but. He got out of the way very quickly, so he played it off well if he didn't mean it. And the main thing was that was probably the only way we were going to score, to walk it in like that. So yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. The second half then sort of settled into the same pattern as the first. But again, we couldn't find the equaliser. and then ultimately United broke away and got the third as Pogba was allowed to sort of slightly wander through our defence. I tend to think that was on the hour mark. I tend to think Koscielny may have been a little bit to blame. He seemed to do the hard work and then seemed to sort of give up and let Pogba get round to centre it for Lingard. After that, we'll sort of do all this in one go. After that, of course, there was the red card for Pogba for taking a dislike to Bellerin's leg. And weirdly, I thought after that the game pretty much shut down. I thought that was sort of the end of our chance. We couldn't seem to get anything going after that particularly. Matt, any thoughts about that sort of second half period?
Yeah, after the red card, United did completely shut up shop, went completely defensive. We brought on Giroud, who didn't really have any influence. He tried a few flicks that didn't come off. I thought we actually looked worse once we had an extra man because there was no real space for us to exploit. Didn't really look like scoring until it came to those penalty decisions. I think they both were probably the Welbeck one, then the Lacazette one, but especially the Welbeck one. I know he jumped up pretty quickly, but I don't think that should make any difference for it not to be given. And I think if we had got that, then there's still 5 or 6 minutes left at 3-2, and who knows what happens then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his reaction, too honest, as they say. He jumped up and it was sort of forgotten. But Pete, any thoughts about sort of any other bits of the second half? I mean, the third goal was obviously a bit of a killer.
Yeah, it was Koscielny again, wasn't it? And I think that's where we think that maybe, in hindsight, maybe he did need a rest on the Wednesday. Maybe it would have, if we could have, I don't know, put in Mertesacker for that game instead. Maybe that would have been the sensible thing to do. But it's easy enough to say. We all said before, played the strongest team against Huddersfield, but actually, maybe looking back, that was the time to rest Koscielny because he's, 3 games in a week is not great for him, is it? Really, quite clearly.
No, absolutely. It's.
But again, it wasn't just him, was it? It was there was a terrible piece of leaving Lingard standing in acres of space in the box when, at least Xhaka was there.
Well, Xhaka had run all the way back and then sort of stopped at the last minute when it came to the key point, which was disappointing to say the least.
Oh, that we just let him go and stand over there.
He'll be fine. It wouldn't be sporting of him to take the shot now. But
then we did have the in the second half we had the best save of the game, which was the double save from Lacazette and Alexis.
Yes.
Again. Can't say I enjoyed that.
No.
But I can almost admire it.
Almost admire as far as we'll push anyone, I think.
As a Czech, I would have definitely enjoyed it.
Well, absolutely. I want to sort of wrap this up now because obviously we lost and we've done our bit by talking about it. Oh, go on. I had one more thing to say, but go on.
You've already done the Welbeck penalty, haven't you?
Yes.
And there's not much else to say about that, other than I would like to say that why don't referees start giving penalties when people don't go down? Because that's the way to stop people diving as well. If people know they'll get the penalty without going down, if they are fouled in the box, then maybe that might help with stopping people diving. And you shouldn't have to go down and not get back up to get a penalty like that.
No, well, I mean, a foul's a foul, isn't it? So it should be spotted by the ref, but obviously it's easier sometimes than others. And yeah, you're absolutely right. But there must be a human nature thing, where there's something. They have to make these decisions so quickly that if you do, sprawl on the floor, perhaps there's a little bit of extra percentage chance that it sticks. But Mourinho didn't like us going down on the floor. He made his sort of grass comment afterwards. I think that's what he was talking about. It was difficult to know, particularly with the black polo neck. His French philosopher's shtick was starting to grate on me by that point. But there we are.
Well, we have done Koscielny's foul on Pogba, have we?
I was going to mention that. I didn't want to dwell on it because, quite frankly, the argument with that was that he was not close enough to the goal for it to be a red card. But I wasn't too sure, to be honest.
Good on him.
Well, that as well. Let's not worry about it. Let's move on. I had one more thing to say about this before we moved on completely, though, which was that game of the season, was the BT thing, and I think there was a lot to recommend it for a neutral. There was lots of skill on the show. If you like a good goalkeeping performance, there was plenty of that. I'm going to try and be a bit sort of Arsene Wenger about it though, and look for the positives. We had 75% of the possession. We had 33 attempts. We had more corners. We had what do we have? We had more passes. We had 3 times as many passes as United, according to the stats I'm looking at here. We even had more tackles. Ultimately, we lost, and ultimately that's the only thing that matters. But Matt, is there anything we can take the positives from? I mean, there must be. We could play like that against a lot of teams and do very well.
Yeah, going forward, there are a lot of positives. I saw a lot of people describe it as a typical Mourinho soaking up pressure. I don't think that was what it was at all. I thought they were pretty open. We cut them apart a lot of times, but for some poor finishing or incredible goalkeeping, we could have easily won that game. And yeah, it's. I guess it's with the what ifs. If we hadn't have had that first 10 minutes. But then if we hadn't had that first 10 minutes, we wouldn't have probably attacked as much and been so aggressive going forward. So it's tough to know, but I think we can take a lot of positives with how well we were going forward. And as Pete said, it wasn't poor tactically defensive. It was just individual errors which we haven't seen, and those aren't going to happen every game. So while it's disappointing, I definitely think there's positives going forward.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd have to agree. I think we tend to be quite optimistic on here anyway, and I think whilst it's obviously frustrating, it's there are, if we can play like in that attacking way, the defensive stuff, cut a couple of those errors, and we'll be in a much stronger position. Pete, you're probably more optimistic as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. I thought we were great. I'm tempted to say brilliant. I think Lacazette was brilliant all the way through that game, and I think it was other than Alexis, I think a couple of defenders, everyone had a great game, and I think what was telling was that they were applauded off at the end.
Yeah.
And you don't often see that when you've lost 3-1 at home to Man U.
You do not, no.
I think everyone knew that was an astonishing game of football, and we'd played really well and been the better team for the vast majority of it. And I think that is a positive. So it's rare you can look at a defeat and think that's not a bad one, but this is probably it.
Yeah, hopefully it's one of those things where it's happened, we can move on, take some lessons and move on, which sounds rather like some kind of dodgy job appraisal, but I think it was an odd sort of set of events, and hopefully we can take the good bits and move on.
One last thing. I don't know if they reported this on BT, but obviously the whole of the Man U team should have been booked right after kick-off, because they did turn us around.
They turned us around. I think I mentioned that in my by the minute commentary. I think I did. I certainly meant to.
Grace, I guess, fairly typical of Mourinho team, but there you go.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, the rules do not allow that. So, although if Mark Clattenburg was refereeing, you never know, given the stories that are out today about his approach to refereeing Spurs, which we should be grateful for, I suppose. Right, because we're running out of time, I'm going to zoom through some bits. I'm not going to do a full Premier League review bit, but I'll just, because there's obviously 2 games last week, but I'll note that we are now 5th in the table, a point behind Liverpool, 4 behind Chelsea and 7 behind United, but we are 3 ahead of Spurs, who've had a much worse couple of weeks than we have, which is lovely, of course. I must admit, I didn't see us being 3 points ahead of them after 15 games just a couple of weeks ago, so that's quite something. Sorry, Pete, you were going to say something?
No, I just said hurrah.
Oh, you said hurrah. Good. Well, hurrah indeed. We won't argue with that. I was only going to mention then briefly these appointments behind the scenes at Arsenal, and I'm going to get the name wrong here. Raul Sanllehi, head of football relations, director of football basically, but they're not calling him that. And of course, recently we also appointed Sven Mislintat. I really should have checked these before I read them out. I've read them for ages, but not actually, verbalised it. As sort of our new chief scout, or player recruitment operation head, as they call it. So that's interesting. There's stuff going on behind the scenes in terms of a bit of restructure, perhaps preparing for the future. And the only other thing I was going to mention here was more bad news for Santi Cazorla, who's having to have another operation. So the chances of seeing him in January, which always seemed a little optimistic, have now disappeared, and well, let's face it, this season is not looking likely. Matt, any thoughts on any of those bits, or shall we get to predictions?
The signing of those two gentlemen look positive. I don't know exactly what they're going to do or how their role is, but I imagine, as you said, it's probably more looking to the future. And I guess it's just good to see Gazidas and those higher up in the board doing this stuff behind the scenes and planning for when Wenger does eventually change, because it's going to obviously be a big overhaul and it's going to take more than one person to replace him.
The problem with talking about Wenger like this is it's almost like talking about an elderly relative or an aged pet that you know is going to shuffle away soon, but you don't like to sort of use euphemistic language. But I know it's not quite the same situation. Pete, any thoughts at all on any of those bits?
Well, only that I assume they've called Raoul head of football relations, so that Arsene doesn't get confused about what his job is.
Yes, because he said a few years ago, didn't he? He didn't see what the point of a director of football was, but we'll see what happens. Right. Oh, very quickly, Nottingham Forest. The reason I thought they were a good team, but they're 13th in the Championship. But I think one of the things I might have spotted, they haven't drawn a single league game this season. They've played 20, won 9 and lost 11. So they do not draw games, which is
no replays. We don't want to replay.
No replays. So they're almost exactly halfway down the Championship. So, I mean, it has all the makings of a TV game, doesn't it? Particularly given so many are televised these days. But we'll leave it there, and we'll look at that in a few weeks. I'm guessing that's the first weekend in January. So we'll see. Right. Previews and predictions, and because time is getting on, we will zoom through these. Very easy to catch up from last week. We all got a point for the Huddersfield game. We didn't get any points for the Man United game because none of us said we would lose, but we all said we beat Huddersfield. So things are as they were at the top. 2 games this week then. Bate on Thursday at 8 o'clock, and then Southampton away on Sunday at 12 o'clock. And watch out for that one. I hadn't realised that was quite so early. I'm going to go first this week. I've already put my predictions in the spreadsheet. Bate, I have no idea what team we're going to play. I think it really should be this, as we've discussed before, very young team on the fringe of the Europa League. Let them have a go. I think also it'd be very positive that they're playing a team that will have something to play for, because obviously the other 3 teams in the group could all still qualify. We're already top of the group, so it doesn't matter to us. So I have gone with a 2-1 win to Arsenal then, on the basis that it could be anything. So I've just gone with something that seems reasonably possible. Southampton away, I hope we're going to get back on the horse, as it were, after losing to United. It's an early start, which slightly puts me off, but I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal win, just on the basis of my eternal optimism. Where should we go? Let's go to Matt then first. Can we have your Bate and Southampton thoughts, please?
The Bate one is tough to predict just because of our team. I imagine we'll play something like the under-12s, but with Walcott still there as captain. He seems to always get in somehow. I mean, it's impossible to know what's going to happen. I think we probably will concede. I don't know why I'm going for an entertaining game considering some of the ones we've seen recently, but I will go 3-1 Arsenal. And as for Southampton, away at Southampton at 12 o'clock sounds disastrous, but I think we had a few years where we really struggled, but last year I think we did okay there. I think we might have got over that. I think there's enough positives to take from the United game that our confidence won't be too dented. I will go 2-1 Arsenal. 2-1 Arsenal for Southampton. Okay, great. Yeah, the Bate thing, I mean, it could be anything. It could be extremely entertaining. Let's hope so. Pete, what are your thoughts on that one and Southampton, please?
Yeah, so the Bate one, I think I think and I hope we just play a load of complete kids. I really hope that we've never heard of half of them, even in the previous rounds. So, I would really enjoy that. And you've both gone for wins, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just remind me how far behind I
am? Matt leads on 17 points. I'm on 14 and you're on 13. So it's all one good result and all is well.
Okay, well, I don't want to lose points on you both there, so I think I'll agree with you, and I'm going to go 4-1 Arsenal.
I can't wait now for this game.
Very exciting. What about Southampton away? To answer Matt's question, we did beat Southampton the last time we went there, 2-0. In fact, we beat them. We beat them 5-0. Was that in a cup game? That was a cup game, wasn't it? We've beaten them also last season at home. We did lose away, the season before. So we have a slightly mixed bag, but we've done quite well recently. What do you think about that one?
I'm going to go 3-1 to Arsenal.
Any reason for that? Or just...
Any comments? No, just that I think I think probably the Man U game won't have knocked our confidence. I think we're playing well, and if we've got a strong team available, which I think we can hope we will have. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Mustafi and whether he's really even. Whether it would be sensible to include him after that, but I think if we're able to play a strong team, and I think we'll carry on the good form that we've had recently, and Southampton are a bit rubbish anyway.
Well, there we go. It seems like a perfectly reasonable summation. Well, let's hope that both of those things come off, and we will be back next week to discuss them. Right, we'll wrap this up then. We've taken up plenty of your time, so for that we will say thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you very much, Matt.
We'll say thank you to Matt. I'm not sure if I should tell you to get ill or get better or something.
Get ill soon.
I'm turning the heating off as we speak.
That seems terribly cruel, but we'll see how it goes. If we get 2 good results this week and you're well, then I think we can let you off the hook for the moment.
Okay,
you're on probation at the moment, perhaps.
Thank you.
That's so funny. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will speak to you again next week. Take care. Bye bye.